The silence was unnatural. Commander HFY of the Terran Defense Coalition pressed her four-fingered hand against the tactical display, her crystalline scales reflecting the dying light of distant explosions. For 73 cycles, the Nexus Warfront had been a symphony of destruction. Plasma cannons singing their death songs, fighters screaming through the void, and the constant chatter of a dozen species coordinating their desperate defense against the Devourers. Now nothing. Status report, she hissed through her translator, the device struggling with her native Kither and clicking. All Coalition fleets have gone dark, Commander, reported Lieutenant Voss, one of the few humans assigned to her bridge crew. His voice carried that peculiar human quality, steady despite the circumstances. The Andromedan fleet, the Centauri Armada, the Rigel Defense Corps, complete communications blackout across a 40-parsec radius. The tactical hologram painted a grim picture. Red dots, Devourer swarm ships, had carved through their defensive lines like acid through flesh. What remained of the Coalition forces were scattered green specks, isolated and presumably destroyed, all except for one small cluster near the Kepler station. What about the humans? HFY asked, though she already suspected the answer. Still transmitting, Commander. Battlegroup Terra is maintaining position around Earth's outer colonies. Of course they were. In the 18 months since humanity had joined the Coalition, they'd proven remarkably stubborn. While other species retreated to defensible positions when overwhelmed, humans had an uncomfortable tendency to dig in deeper. The communications array crackled to life, cutting through the bridge's tension. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Second Fleet to any Coalition forces receiving this transmission. The human's voice was calm, almost conversational. We've lost contact with all fleet elements. Devourer forces have broken through our defensive perimeter and are advancing on the core systems. HFY leaned forward. At least one human commander had survived. However, Chen continued, we've identified a strategic opportunity. The Devourers have concentrated their entire force for this final push, leaving their command ship, designation World Render, with minimal escort. We're going to attempt a direct assault on their neural nexus. Madness, whispered her tactical officer, a wise old Vegan whose species had fought the Devourers for 3 centuries. The World Render is 30 kilometers of biomechanical nightmare. It's suicide. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. To any Coalition survivors, consider this our final gift. When we make our run, the Devourers will pull everything back to protect their nexus. Use the distraction. Get your people to safety. The transmission ended. HFY stared at the tactical display, watching the impossible unfold. A single human battle group, maybe 40 ships, was breaking formation and burning hard toward the Devourer command cluster. Meanwhile, the massive swarm began to contract, flowing back to defend their precious neural nexus like antibodies responding to infection. Are they actually doing this? Lieutenant Voss asked, his human voice tight with something HFY couldn't quite identify. Pride? Terror? Both? The answer came 12 minutes later when the long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges from the World Render's position. The humans had made contact. Then, impossibly, something changed on the tactical display. The red dots began to flicker. Commander, her sensor officer reported, mandibles chattering with confusion. The Devourer fleet is stuttering. Their formation integrity is degrading. HFY enhanced the display. Across the battlefield, Devourer ships were drifting, their perfect hive-mind coordination breaking down into chaotic individual movements. What did the humans do? She breathed. Her answer came in the form of a new transmission, this one weak and crackling with interference. This is Technical Specialist Rodriguez aboard the UES Defiance. We've successfully infiltrated the World Render's bio-neural matrix. The voice was young, female, and exhausted. The bastards run everything through their queen mind. Problem is, they never expected anyone crazy enough to board their command ship. Static filled the channel for long seconds. When Rodriguez's voice returned, it carried a note of grim satisfaction. Uploading a little gift from humanity's cybersecurity division. Turns out consciousness-based networks are just as vulnerable to logic bombs as quantum computers. Maybe more so. The tactical display erupted in chaos. Devourer ships throughout the sector began shutting down, their bio-neural networks collapsing in cascade failures as human-designed malware spread through their collective consciousness. The override code is propagating through their network faster than they can adapt, Rodriguez continued. Their queen mind is trying to quarantine infected nodes, but it's like trying to stop a wildfire by thinking really hard about rain. Within an hour, what remained of the Devourer swarm was drifting dead in space. Their hive mind consciousness crashed beyond recovery, the creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, reduced to empty biological shells by a handful of humans with outdated computers and unshakable determination. Later, when the Coalition fleets emerged from their hidden positions and rescue operations began, HFY found herself staring at the debris field, where Battle Group Terra had made their final stand. Of the 40 ships that had charged the world render, only 3 remained intact. Lieutenant Voss approached her station, carrying damage reports from across the sector. Final casualty count, Commander. We lost 97% of our fleet strength, but we won. HFY studied the human's face, noting the way his species processed grief and triumph simultaneously. Your people saved us all, Lieutenant. How do you do it? How do you find courage when logic demands retreat? Voss was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars where his fellow humans had died to break an ancient enemy. Maybe it's because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Or maybe, he paused, searching for words. Maybe it's because we learned a long time ago that someone has to press the button, even when you don't know what it does. As the rescue ships moved through the debris field, collecting survivors and honoring the dead, HFY reflected on the strange species that had joined their coalition. Humans, with their brief lives and primitive technology, had accomplished what 3 centuries of warfare could not. They'd found a way to make the impossible merely improbable, and sometimes that was enough.